Hey guys, welcome back to Andy's Dinosaur Reviews, and today we have a very interesting Brachiosaurus figure to take a look at. It's not too often that we get a really cool new sauropod figure, but we luckily have one here, and of course it's one of those random unbranded figures from eBay. I don't really know where they get them from, or who exactly is behind the creation of the figures, but I am really happy that they do make them because sometimes they end up being pretty darn cool. I actually had initially stumbled upon this on eBay, but then I purchased it on AliExpress. So, of course, I will include a link in the description to where you can pick it up at the end of the video. Make sure you check the description after it's over. But again, I thought it was a really interesting looking Brachiosaurus. Very Jurassic Park-like pose like we see at the beginning of Jurassic Park. So I feel like that's probably the inspiration for the pose, but the coloration is clearly quite different than what you would see on a Jurassic Park-style Brachiosaurus. And I actually was a big fan as far as what I had seen on the promotional images in the listing. As far as the paint scheme, I thought it looked really quite nice, and that's kind of one of the main things that drew me to the figure. Of course, the Jurassic Park style pose was one, but the coloration I thought looked really nice, and the actual paint job looked really nice as well. So I'm quite excited to take a look at this with you guys to see if the paint job matches up as nicely to the prototype as I hope it does, and also just in general to see if this is a decent looking Brachiosaurus figure up close. So let's go ahead and do that right now. So starting up here at the head sculpt of our Brachiosaurus, it honestly does sport some really nice looking detail overall. I'm definitely quite impressed with the overall texturing as well as the paint application to what we see up here on the head sculpt. I do quite like it. You can also see some nice hanging skin there in the throat region of the Brachiosaurus as well. I love the coloration of the upper side of the head. That looks really cool. It has like a nice mixture of orange and red, and really gives the entire head sculpt of the Brachiosaurus a pretty flashy appearance overall. Other than that, on the head sculpt you could see quite a few different variations of like greens and browns included, as well as that darker green that kind of runs down from the top of the Brachiosaurus. We also have a fairly nicely painted eye, but it looks a little sloppy, honestly. However, when it comes to these very strange, unbranded figures, it definitely can get worse, so it overall is pretty decent. You can also see the teeth are painted within the mouth, and they're actually painted quite nicely. Like, they don't really appear to be sloppy at all. If we take a nice closer look on this side, you could definitely see that those teeth are painted nicely. The tongue as well appears to be painted with a nice dark, it looks like maybe a maroon or a red, and also sports a bit of a gloss coat in there. So again, it's really impressive how nice some of these figures can be, and this one specifically is really quite nice, especially when it comes to the paint job. I feel like the paint job looks great on this figure, and on top of the really nice tones of color that they've used on it, they also have included a nice dark wash, which, if you know me, you know I love a nice dark wash on my figures, so that is a huge plus as well. As I bang the camera with the Brachiosaurus, you can see the upper side of the head looks really nice as well. There is unfortunately a little chip of the paint right here on the top of the head of the Brachiosaurus, so I'll have to touch that up so that that is non-existent, but it still looks really nice regardless. As we start to move into the neck region, you can see lots of really nice texturing to the skin as well as lots of creasing as we move down the length of the neck, and you can see that really cool light brown. I love that light brown that they've included in this figure. I really like that aspect of it, but lots of really nice looking skin detail again for a figure like this that, as far as I know of, is just a totally unknown figure and potentially was sculpted by some random person that clearly doesn't want credit for it. It has some really gorgeous detailing to it overall, and you can see here on the underside of the throat that there's a nice mixture of like an off-white and that kind of an orangish brown that we see throughout the entire figure, and it looks really cool the way that it's applied. Very nice and naturally applied, and the detailing aspect here to the underside of the neck as well looks really good. As we move down into the body, you can see that the skin texture continues to look really nice, and you see this very nice darker coloration run down the course of the back. It's like a nice dark brown that runs down and stripes down into the body, which I think looks really nice. And then as you move down into the body itself, you can see, again, some more really nice skin texture to the figure, but some beautiful musculature to the front leg, as well as lots of wrinkling to the skin going on, really showing, again, the movement of this Brachiosaurus standing up on two legs. You can really see the skin in general reacting pretty much everywhere, even in the stomach and everything, to the movement that is currently going on as far as the dinosaur. And you can see as we move down, there's like some more hints of that black, or the dark brown, I should say, and then some nice variations of like browns and greens and stuff throughout, and it looks really nice the way that they've painted it, very nice and carefully, which is not something, again, that I expect out of these type of figures. And you can see that the foot sculpt looks pretty decent as well as far as like that Jurassic Park style Brachiosaurus goes. nicely painted nails and all that fun stuff, and they're nice and carefully placed as well. Actually, again, looking at this, the more I look at it, the more I'm convinced that it's obviously not meant to be an accurate Brachiosaurus, but definitely very Jurassic Park inspired. You can also see the elbow back here, which I did not point out. Moving back up here into the stomach region, again, lots of really nice skin texture. Like, this texturing of the skin on this figure is really quite nice, almost mind-blowing, I will say, for this type of figure. You can also see the spinal column running along the back up here, and look how smooth the transitions are between those colors. So insanely nice. As we move down further into the stomach and down into the rear leg, you can again see lots of stretching of the skin going on, lots of movement being shown, because now you have this leg, the front leg, pushing into the body, but this leg stretching the skin. So there's just a ton of movement shown in the stomach region of this Brachiosaurus, and you can really see how beautifully that is presented in the sculpt. And moving down here even further, again, we get into the rear leg. It's a very large, very bulky rear leg with some beautiful muscle tone displayed, especially since the dinosaur is now putting all of its weight on its rear legs, so you would definitely see some very nice flexing of the muscles going on. And again, nice transition to the underside of the Brachiosaurus with actually have like some orangish brown stripes that run the course of the legs. And then on the underside, we continue to see that variation of like that brown and the off-white, and how they just kind of trade places, and they're just very sporadic as far as the way that they're placed on the underside of the figure. But it looks really nice, and you can again see that nice dark wash that I was talking about as far as the underside goes, and lots of movement of the skin here as well. And then as we move back over here, we can actually see the rear legs, and again, the nails are painted pretty nicely. Some slight sloppiness here, but not too much. They look decent. The foot sculpt as well looks pretty good overall. And then as we come back into the tail, again, the dinosaur is planting its body on the tail. Very nice short Brachiosaurus tail as far as like a Jurassic Park style Brachiosaurus tail goes. I would really actually love to rebuy this figure now and give it a JP style paint job, because it's almost perfect for the Brachiosaurus as far as the beginning of Jurassic Park goes. But you can continue to see that nice striping effect that runs down from the upper side of the Brachiosaurus, the beautiful variations of browns and greens, and the skin texture continues to look really nice as we lead out the length of that tail. And then if we look at the opposing side, there's not going to be too much difference on this side, because for the most part the dinosaur is in the same position over here that you can see on the opposing side, aside from one leg in a different position. But we'll get down there in a moment. You can see again the head sculpt looks great. The entire neck sculpt looks incredible. That nice dark wash makes all the detail pop beautifully. And we have those gorgeous variations of greens and browns included. Makes it look super nice if you ask me. I really am a huge fan of the paint job of this figure. And then this is the area where we see there's a little difference as far as the front leg is in just a slightly different position than the opposing leg. The leg on this side is pushing into the body, I would say, a little more so than what we see on the opposing leg. You can see the elbow over here. Again, some nice muscle tone displayed within the front leg as well. And then lots of really nice skin wrinkles and skin movement, again, shown. It's very impressive how much detailing there is in a sculpt for a figure that's just like in a totally unbranded figure. Foot sculpt again looks pretty decent over here. Nicely painted nails, again just like a JP style Brachiosaurus foot sculpt would look. And then as we move back into the stomach, you can again see lots of skin wrinkles, skin stretching, all of that, as far as the movement being shown within the sculpt, and they've done a very good job of that, as well as just again the actual fine detailing, like the texturing of the skin looks really good on this figure if you ask me. And then moving down further again into the rear leg, you can see that the rear leg is actually in a slightly different pose than the opposing leg, but very, very slight. There's not much difference, but it looks really good regardless. Again, nicely painted nails, definitely a little better over here than what we had seen on the previous side. Very nice muscles tensing and everything over here, just like we had seen on the previous side, because again, the dinosaur is bearing all of its weight on its rear legs as it's standing up like this. And then we move back into the tail. We have another little chip of paint that I will touch up, but honestly, it's a beautiful looking Brachiosaurus. As far as a totally unknown figure goes, it's very, very impressively well done. As far as the size goes, for a height on our Brachiosaurus, you are going to see it come in at about 11 3/4 inches, or just under the 30 centimeter range. So it's definitely quite tall, but it's not super huge. It's not like Papo Brachiosaurus size or anything like that, or W Dragon, Giraffatitan size, even worse. It's definitely, it's actually a pretty convenient size, I would say, for a sauropod figure like this, but it isn't overly sized. We can't really do much else as far as like a length or anything, because the length at this point would probably be the same as the height. So for a size comparison, there is Mr. Papo T-Rex, the Attack Pack Colovosaurus, and Robert Muldoon, next to our very cool Brachiosaurus. And you can definitely see that, although I did say that it's not super huge, you can definitely see that there is some pretty significant height difference between this Brachiosaurus and these figures. So I guess it does sport a pretty large size overall. I mean, it's definitely not a small figure, but for a sauropod, we often get sauropod figures that are a bit larger than this one is. But regardless, again, it's definitely got a pretty good height advantage on even Mr. Papo Rex, who is a pretty big figure himself. So the size is quite impressive, even if it's not as large as some other sauropods. So this really cool Unbranded Brachiosaurus is definitely a nice figure. Honestly, it's a very impressive figure, and it's one of the nicest unbranded figures that I've had in a long time that I've purchased. And I've actually gotten quite a few good ones over the past few months, but this one, as far as like the actual paint application, I feel like is extremely impressive, and the sculpt as well. It's just overall a really cool looking, again, Jurassic Park, I would say, inspired Brachiosaurus. When I had initially seen the images of it online, I kind of waited it out. I didn't buy it right away because it's actually in like the $20, $25 range or so for the figure. So at first I was a little hesitant to buy it because, you know, if it shows up not being very good or being like kind of like a soft, squishy kind of lower quality figure, I definitely would have been kind of unhappy with the purchase paying that much. But I can say with complete confidence that this figure is well worth the price, and it's actually quite impressive. As far as the quality goes, like, it's a really nice high quality feel to it. It's very solid overall. And something else that I feel like is very impressive is the fact that it balances really well. There are no warped legs or anything on this at all, and the balance is perfect. It actually stays up really nicely. It does not fall over as far as my experience with it so far. And overall, again, it doesn't feel like kind of a cheap Chinese knockoff figure or anything like that like we see so often. It feels like a pretty well made, overall decent quality figure. So it really is quite impressive in almost every aspect, I would say. And the sculpt is very highly detailed, sporting just an absolute plethora of detail within. You have some really nice skin wrinkles and skin folds. Like, it perfectly shows the movement taking place with this dinosaur at this point in time for kind of standing up like that. It really does show a lot of really nice movement within the sculpt, and the actual texturing of the skin I feel like is incredibly well done. Again, I actually really want to purchase another one of these so that I can repaint it to look more like a Jurassic Park Brachiosaurus, but who knows when or if I'll ever actually get to doing that. But it's definitely a good idea if you're in the market for a really nicely sized Brachiosaurus that kind of resembles the opening scene of Jurassic Park. This is a great choice, especially if you're good at repainting so that you can repaint it to look like that. But even with the fact that you'd have to repaint it, if you just buy it and keep it like this, it's actually beautiful. I really love the paint application of this Brachiosaurus. Honestly, all of the coloration on this gives it a pretty flashy look, but all really nice and natural. Something I could personally see a giant sauropod being color-wise, and something that I feel like is nicely applied as well. Like, it all is nice and naturally applied to the figure. Every ounce of paint on this looks like body color, not paint on a figure, and the paint scheme overall is very pleasing to the eye. And I really love areas like the orangish brown that they've included throughout the entire figure. It really is very nice to look at. And then you have that beautiful reddish and orangish area on the top of the head, just giving it a bit of flashiness. And again, all of it looks really cool and really looks like it belongs on the animal. So kudos to whoever did in fact make this. Again, I wish I knew, but unfortunately it's branded like a bootleg. It's not exactly given a brand name or anything like that. It's just a mysterious figure that shows up on eBay and AliExpress from time to time. But honestly, it is a beautiful Brachiosaurus if you ask me. So if you would like to pick this up, I will include a link in the description, again, to AliExpress where I purchased mine. So make sure you check the description, go buy this really cool Brachiosaurus, and make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. And I will see you in the next review. Thanks for watching.